For years, no, centuries, it has been said that there would be a new Game Boy. A prophecy that a Game Boy would rise up, forged from the very metals of the weapons found on the battlegrounds of Hyrule. From the fires of the gaming wars that have plagued every retro gamer comes a new device. This prophecy is for all retro gamers, near and far. A prophecy that claims that we will not be retro gaming tomorrow, but instead declaring that we would be retro gaming now.
Is the prophecy true? Could there be a Game Boy to play it all? Not just a few games, but almost all the games. A Game Boy that would unite all retro consoles. It's impossible. Who would smith such a sorcerous device? Who might forge such a piece of beauty? I believe I have found him. Welcome, Retro Chasers. This is Game Boy Zero, and I spoke about the Game Boy not too long ago. You were introduced to Jebby. If you haven't seen that video, you got to check it out. But I'm gonna speak about it a little bit more now. So back in 1989, the original Game Boy came out, and it was a great time to be alive. I mean, you can play basically Nintendo on the go. There were great games, but there were some pretty awful games as well. No colors, it wasn't as fast. This little guy here, which was a little guy back in the day, but now we can look at it and say our iPhones or most phones are smaller than this, despite the aspect ratio. It's still, our phones are thinner, lighter, but this is much heavier. It's heftier. It required cartridges, bigger cartridges than what we're used to today. It took 4 batteries. It was cool in its time. It was good in its time. It's funny, one of the struggles of having this was, I remember getting my Game Boy Pocket and it was Christmas, and we were driving down the highway and I was so excited. So we were basically driving from New York City to eastern Pennsylvania, so it's about a 2-hour drive, and it was hilarious trying to play games on the highway at night. You only had a few seconds to actually play something because you were hoping for that patch of light, that strip of light on the highway, so that you can get a little bit in there. Bro, the struggle was real. The Game Gear. Now the Game Gear, I don't have too much experience with the Game Gear, but I remember my friends that had the Game Gear, and I was really jealous of them, and mainly because of this, because now I understand that gaming is more about the fun than the technology, but the technology then was really focused on, it was like, what was better? Did it have better graphics, more bits? Did it have a blast processor? Did it have a chip for 3D polygon graphics? How many colors? That was the focus. So when Game Gear came out, it was cool because it had a colored screen. You could play Sonic on it. So comparing that to Game Boy, even when the Game Boy Advance came out, that was it. That was cool. But you couldn't pull an over on the fans, because ultimately Game Boy had better titles, more titles, and just more fun games. And that leads me to the console wars. You had Nintendo versus Sega, and then PlayStation coming along. For me, it was PlayStation and Nintendo 64. Now, I never really owned consoles. I always played consoles at friends' homes or my uncle's house, and any console that I did get was a hand-me-down 5 years after its peak. So, but the console wars was huge. So, you know, it was Sega better than Nintendo, Nintendo better than Sega. I mean, we look at sales numbers today, and we understand that Sega tanked eventually. But I didn't really get into anything Sega until the Dreamcast came out, and the Dreamcast was I need to get into the Dreamcast again. I love it. Most of the titles I own from Dreamcast are on my GameCube, so you know, I still enjoy a lot of their software, but I'm not too into their hardware. Maybe that's something I want to get into in the future. But I have found a magician, a man who would unite them all into one single Game Boy. I present to you the Game Boy Zero. So I got this piece from RGN, Retro Gaming Now, and I kind of wanted to do a little unboxing to give you an experience of what you might expect from Retro Gaming Now. I tell you, when I got this package, it was, I mean, in pristine condition. So opening the box, what you'll get right away, you get some cards, and you'll see it's very bubble wrapped, very, very bubble wrapped. I was very impressed with the way it was taken care of. So you'll get this device right away, and you once unwrapping it, you just opening it for the first time, it felt really good. It felt right. The detail on this piece is absolutely phenomenal. The first thing I noticed right away are the buttons and the scratches, and it's made to look like copper and metal and like it was in a battle. Hence the whole premise of this entire production of just war and fire and a Game Boy being forged from the flames. And one of the cool details about this is the back. I mean, it's a Legend of Zelda themed device, but the back has the cartridge in it from Legend of Zelda I'm not sure if it's a DX, but yeah, it's definitely in there, and you can see, I mean, the scratches are consistent throughout. It just looks really, really cool. What I like about this, I don't know, not everybody's cup of tea, but it's very inconspicuous, so it kind of looks like a piece of furniture. If you were just like to put it near a book in a library or put it on your nightstand or desk, it doesn't stand out and say, oh, that's a Game Boy. It kind of looks like furniture, or a piece of furniture, if you will. It just blends in well. So if you have a lot of wooden furniture around that's kind of stained with dark wood finish, this is perfect because it just kind of hides. Kids can't get it. They don't see the colorful buttons, and they don't grab it right away and say, oh, that's a game, that's a toy. So I know I'm talking a lot about the outside, and I want you to understand that RGN, they do not specialize in customized shells, but they do customize it to a certain extent. If you want something of this extent, you can work with people like CK Signs or Rose Colored Gaming that might have some pre-made shells. And they could send it over to him. He's friends with them, and they work with each other very well. And there's an amazing amount of people who are customizing outside shells. Great artists that will work with you. Send it into him, and he can kind of take over from there. What RGN does specialize in is the internals, which I think counts the most. So basically, this is the computer that's running inside of it. It's very, very small. But it's very powerful. So what's cool about it is that it can run multiple gaming systems, including PlayStation and kind of Nintendo 64. What's nice about this is it has a rechargeable battery. Now the battery will last you about 3 hours. I want to say 3 to 4. The brightness of the screen is pretty bright. You can change that by connecting a keyboard here and eventually changing the brightness. It's a bit of a task, but once you figure it out, it's worth it. But one of the things I do recommend is just getting one of these charging bricks, and this thing it's basically 26,000 milliamps per hour, and this will last you forever. So if you're going on a long ride, just grab one of these. This one cost me about $49.99. I think the price jumped up to $59.99. I will leave a link in the description so you can check this out. Definitely worth it. On the side here, you'll see you have complete access to the SD card. So if you want to take it out and put it into another system for quick ROM transfers, you can do that. That's what I do, and it works very well. Obviously has the volume rocker. All around, it's just a brick of nostalgia. I mean, what better way to play all the games but on here? Now there are a few systems out there like the GPD and the PSP that does exactly the same thing, if not even better, but that's not what this is about. Although those are great systems, this is purely nostalgic. It just seems right to play everything on this instead of a PSP or a GPD for that matter. There are a bunch of systems out there. You can do this on anything. You can do this on a Wii. You can do this on your computer. But that's not the point. It just feels right that all the consoles would play on one Game Boy. So overall, I had a blast teaming up with RGN to present this to you today. This piece totally represents who I am. I mean, I can go through a whole story of why I'm Game Boy Zero, but just to give you a hint, just like this Game Boy, the Game Boy Zero also plays everything. I'm just a Game Boy who wants to play all the retro consoles. If you want a system like this, check out Retro Gaming Now. I'll leave a description down below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like it and share it. So until next time, stay classic, Retro Chasers, and I'll see you next week.